Welcome to day 6 of CSI8 certification. Today we're going to look at how we enter our base tenants into CSI and how the standards are set so that we can recognize our base tenants throughout CSI. We'll be using Tallahassee as a sample location, but just put your own FBO in the same scenarios as you're seeing in this video for Tallahassee. Okay, so if you look to the left side of the screen, you'll see that on the slide bar, the icons on the left, I call that a slide bar. As you click Operations, FBO, Sales, as you click these different slides, they open up and show a whole new selection of modules of CSI. And you can see the base tenant module icon, the gold aircraft with base tenants. I've clicked that icon, and now I'm looking at the base tenant screen. And yes, you can see all the base tenants for every location in Millionaire on this screen. And you're seeing Tallahassee's base tenants. If this list is not up to date, you got to let me know and we'll get it up to date. But there's your current list of base tenants in CSI. Okay, so if you have permission to add base tenants, there's a security setting on this. So maybe all of you don't have this option. But for those that do, I wanted you to see how to add a base tenant. You simply right mouse click in the list of based aircraft and the base tenant add screen will pop up and you'll see the squares of all the different things you can enter to actually add an aircraft, a tail number to your base tenant list. I put my mouse over that red button that says add tenant. If you click that button, a small screen pops up for you to add a new base tenant name that is not currently in the drop-down list of base tenants. And you also have the start date. If you actually know when this base tenant started, when the contract started for this base tenant, and I wouldn't say renewed aircraft, I wouldn't come in and update this every year. I would just say, hey, they've been a base tenant since this time, and just put that date in, and then send me an email and I'll update all the flights of the past of our flight records and stamp them as a base tenant flight for us so our base tenant information and counts will match correctly. And when you want to end a base tenant's contract and they're no longer a base tenant, you would just apply an end date. Do not put an end date, and like you say, well, their date's going to end 2 years from now. Don't put that date in until they actually become an X-base tenant. When CSI sees an end date in that date, it doesn't look at the date and see if it's greater than or less than. It's just looking to see if there is a date. It just sends back a 0 or a 1 for speed purposes. It doesn't process dates and put dates of this base tenant in its queries. So only enter the end date when the aircraft is no longer a base tenant. Okay, so I opened up ILAS again and I went to Tallahassee and I put the date on June 23rd. And you'll see at the top of ILAS where I turned data refresh off. And I just want to look at this data and look at these gold icons. So now you're seeing your base tenant arrivals in ILAS, and I propose that we have this phrase at a glance. You can just look at this screen at a glance and see that you had 3 based aircraft arriving in Tallahassee. You also see 3 red squares on there, 3 blocked flights were not unblocked on the 23rd. And so we'll be auditing that. I'd like to propose once again that in Tallahassee, there's no excuse to have a blocked aircraft because all the aircraft come to your ramp. And so that's a little bit of ILAS auditing. It's the beginning of ILAS auditing. We're going to do our best to inspire each other that we're going to get that number down to 0. And then later in training, we're going to find out the incredible value that brings to the entire Millionaire Network when we do these CSI8 functions. If you look at the bottom of the screen and click the legend button, this legend screen will open. And these are the icons and the color codes that we pretty much use throughout all of CSI. I'd like to give special attention to the first 3 icons located below the list that says aircraft icon in order of occurrence. The first one is a blue aircraft icon for our VIPs. We have not had a VIP arrive in Tallahassee in a very long time, but if one shows up, it would be impossible for me to exaggerate the importance of not having a drop in service standards on that particular aircraft, and very likely the importance of knowing the actual name of the customer when they come down the ramp of their aircraft. There's a lot of personal attention required on these VIPs, so just be aware of that. The gold aircraft icon, as we can see, these are your base tenants. The green aircraft icon are millionaire base tenants located at another millionaire. Now we know the green from the gold by looking at the aircraft edit screen. All base tenants that are in our base tenant system will get one of these aircrafts next to their tail number, but if it's a green aircraft, it's a base tenant that on the aircraft edit screen, the base airport is not TLH. So you got to make sure that all of your based aircraft have TLH as the base airport on the aircraft edit screen. So it takes two things to be a base tenant at Tallahassee. Number one, the tail number is in the base tenant list. And number two, the aircraft edit screen has Tallahassee as the airport that the aircraft is based at. So now in ILAS, I've clicked on your base customer, November 769 Mike Bravo, and then I've gone in ILAS and I've clicked Aircraft Stats tab. You can see it there, and it's showing me the arrival counts of this aircraft throughout all the airports in the FAA. The millionaire airports will have the little green M next to the airport, and so you can see that this aircraft, one of its top airports it flies into, is our new location at Millionaire Marathon. So now you can see that below arrival stats, I've clicked on the tab fuel cells, and we can also see the fuel cells at each of the locations for that tail number. And you can see that that aircraft has flown to 5 of the millionaire airports in the last 365 days, and the fuel it's purchased at those 5 locations. So now you're seeing the importance of all locations participating in CSI. Imagine the experience of your base customer if it landed at any one of those 5 airports and was not recognized and received any attention as being a millionaire base tenant at Millionaire Tallahassee. Let's take a look at this scenario. Let me first tell you what I've done. I've picked White Plains as my airport. I've also gone to the top of the ILAS screen and selected yes for based at HPN. And so I'm seeing all the aircraft that arrived on the 20th that are based at HPN, whether they're millionaire base tenants or base tenants for other FBOs. I then select millionaire's base tenant VTE 207, which you can see over to the right. It's been linked properly, and so I know it's November 207 Romeo Whiskey. I've also gone to the aircraft stats and the fuel cell stats and seen that this aircraft has purchased 253 some odd thousand gallons in the last 365 days. I've also noticed that this aircraft goes to a lot of places, but White Plains is the only airport in Millionaire that this aircraft arrives into. Imagine if for the first time this tail number arrived into Tallahassee, and you're now servicing this large aircraft that has purchased over 250,000 gallons from Millionaire in the last 365 days, and you do not recognize who they are. You do not give them any special attention. You don't even give them a discount for their fuel. They get absolutely zero recognition for being a base tenant at White Plains and buying 253,000 gallons of fuel in the last 365 days. Do you get it? This is why we use CSI ILAS in our proprietary tools to make sure we improve our service standards to every customer that comes to our facility. Okay, that's all for day 6. Let's move on to day number 7.